Hey, I'll check out the audiobook of Lou Rockwell's Fascism versus Capitalism, narrated by me, Scott Horton, at audible.com. It's a great collection of his essays and speeches on the important tradition of liberty. From medieval history to the Ron Paul Revolution, Rockwell blasts our status enemies, profiles our greatest libertarian heroes, and prescribes the path forward in the battle against Leviathan. Fascism versus Capitalism by Lou Rockwell for audiobook. Find it at Audible, Amazon, iTunes, or just click in the right margin of my website at scotthorton.org. All right, y'all, Scott Horton Show. Check out the archives at scotthorton.org. 4,000-something interviews now going back to 2003 for you there. And all the latest stuff gets posted first at the Libertarian Institute, libertarianinstitute.org/Scott Horton Show. Follow me on Twitter at Scott Horton Show. All right, introducing Jeffrey Carr. He is a computer security expert, and he is the founder of the Suits and Spooks Security Conference that they do semi-regularly here. The next one is coming up in Los Angeles at the end of November at the big auto show there, the Suits and Spooks Conference. Welcome back to the show. How are you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Scott.
Okay. Good. Listen, I appreciate you joining us today. I won't take up too much of your time, but I was just thinking probably now is a good time to rehash just a little bit of what you think the average Joe Scott Horton Show listener needs to know about what we do know and don't know about Russian hacking and interference in our election. Here it's already April. We've had a hell of a lot of narrative and not too many facts, and I was just hoping you could help provide a little bit of necessary professional perspective for us here.
Thanks. And, it's really nothing has changed from last December. The company, the primary driver for this is a company that's called CrowdStrike. They probably published the very worst piece of intelligence ever that I've ever read in the history of cyber intelligence reports on this Ukraine, this alleged hacking by the GRU of a Ukrainian military app. This was supposed to be the nail driven into the coffin of Russian government involvement in the DNC hack. But it turns out that they had all of their facts wrong. They cannot, they are refusing to discuss it with the press anymore. They are refusing to testify publicly before a congressional hearing. They have walked back their claim of 80% destruction of howitzer cannons on the part of Ukraine's military. The IISS has disavowed their data that was misused by CrowdStrike. The developer of the app has consistently maintained that none of his users, none of the other soldiers have been compromised by this malware. I mean, it's just it was so ridiculous. And now finally, it's getting more coverage by Voice of America and by most recently the Daily Mail. And hopefully it will continue to unravel. Mm-hmm. So,
and on that artillery story, once the Voice of America, of all people, once they did the investigation and debunked that, then CrowdStrike themselves walked it back and abandoned that particular set of claims about the artillery malware. Correct?
Well, they only walked back the claim that 80% of the howitzers were impacted. Now they have since rewritten the report to say maybe 15 to 20%, and they use the, very fuzzy language even with that. But really the entire claim of these devices used by the Ukrainian artillerymen to help calculate their distance as being compromised is without any basis in fact at all. So. This raises serious questions about whether you can believe anything that the company reports on.
Mm-hmm. Well, according to the Voice of America story, they actually, when they contacted the Ukrainian military, they said, well, we haven't had any malware or any compromise, any artillery pieces lost to anything like this. There's not even a kernel of truth to it, right?
That's right. The Ukrainian government issued a statement. And it's not like there's no side effect. It's not as if there were there was no harm done by the publication of this false report by CrowdStrike. There was harm done. It harmed the morale of the soldiers. It harmed the work of the Ukrainian military officer that wrote the app because it questioned whether or not his app was reliable, and which means less people would have used it. Keep in mind, this is not a rich country. A lot of the soldiers are volunteers. A lot of times a lot of them don't even use smartphones. They use tablets that have been given to them, donated to them. A powerful, very wealthy U.S. cybersecurity company needs to exercise even a smidgen of due diligence before publishing these kinds of reports that get international coverage, and journalists that cover them, they cover them sort of blindly. They don't use a skeptical voice, and even when we now know that much of that report was false, if not all of it, the media that gave them coverage in the beginning is silent.
Right.
So,
all right, now you characterize this as it was supposed to be the nail in the coffin. This was the corroboration. This was what really proved what CrowdStrike had already said, that we have traced APT 28 and 29. I learned that means aggressive persistent threat, not apartment. Thanks, Twitter. APT 28 and APT 29. Why, we just know that that's the GRU, the Russian military, and that's the FSB, the Russian, the now KGB, their CIA security services, and so this artillery thing just escalated their confidence from high to ultimate or something like that. But so maybe they're still right about APT 28 and 29, regardless of this artillery piece story. What do you think of that?
Yeah, and so there's still nothing has really changed from the original DNC story. So there's still no technical evidence, just like there wasn't last summer, which connects the GRU or the FSB to the malware that was used against the DNC. There is zero technical evidence to support that. In fact, the finding of the U.S. Intelligence Committee is more focused on the release of the stolen documents from WikiLeaks. So, and that is simply that this would be of interest, or this would be something that you would expect an intelligence service to do. And so they resulted, they looked at the full picture, and because this is what intelligence services do, meaning try to influence the outcome of an election. The U.S. does it all the time. So do other countries. So does Russia, of course. So therefore, that's I believe why they came to the finding that they did, short of any classified knowledge, which no one has shared and which I have no way of knowing. But certainly there has never been any technical evidence to support that claim, and continues not to be any technical evidence today. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that Russia didn't do it, of course. Let's be clear about that. Mm-hmm. There's no way to say it was not the Russian government. Right. You can only say there's no evidence that connects the Russian government. There's no technical evidence that connects the Russian government to the hack of the DNC.
Hey, y'all, Scott Horton here for WallStreetWindow.com. Mike Swanson knows his stuff. He made a killing running his own hedge fund and always gets out of the stock market before the government-generated bubbles pop, which is, by the way, what he's doing right now, selling all his stocks and betting on gold and commodities. Sign up at WallStreetWindow.com and get real-time updates from Mike on all his market moves. It's hard to know how to protect your savings and earn a good return in an economy like this. Mike Swanson can help. Follow along on paper and see for yourself. WallStreetWindow.com.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, okay, so Marcy Wheeler, who's good on everything, and she's so smart, I can't understand a lot of the stuff she writes or keep up with it all. But she seems to think that, she's skeptical too, but she seems to think that, yeah, there's enough evidence, I think, to believe that Apartment 28 is the GRU going back to previous days, maybe previous years, that sort of people in this industry know that this really is the Russians, and that, I guess, and I can't keep it all straight, Jeffrey, between, Guccifer 2 here and DC leaks there and whatever, but they're saying that, she was saying, I think, that there was real reason to believe that this was the Russians that were at least involved in one or the other hacks, I guess the DNC hack, and that it did seem to and I'm not sure for all the different reasons, did seem to be the same people as this APT-28, and the APT-28 seems to be GRU from way back. Now, to me, this could mean it's just turtles all the way down. I don't, it sounds maybe like it's question begging, but then again, maybe there is some hard science that back in whatever year said that, no, we do know that this is the GRU, and now we can compare what they're doing then to what they're doing now, that kind of deal.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, if anybody believes that they have evidence that connects the two, then they should present it. But so far, nobody has. Marcy's great. I've talked to her many times, but I know for sure that she has not seen any technical evidence that connects the two. Neither have I. Neither has anybody that I know, including the people who believe that it was Russia. Mm-hmm. So it all comes down to a belief. It's just like believing in God. Can you prove the existence of God? No. Does that mean he doesn't exist? No.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, how educated of a guess is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter to me. The point. Okay. The problem here is that when it comes to making a claim from between governments, claims between people, no harm done, right? No harm done, unless the claim is like child abuse or animal abuse or something where setting a fire where people were injured. Those claims, of course, yes, harm is done. But to say, my personal opinion is the Russian government did it, your opinion is they didn't, no harm done, it's just an argument. But when one government accuses another government of something like this, then harm can be done. Because today, cyber attacks are considered use of force. So there are real world implications when there is a charge levied, right? And then when there are sanctions, economic sanctions, then innocent people get hurt. So we need to make sure, even though there maybe they did, maybe they didn't, before one government accuses another government and before there are real world implications, real world actions with causes and with harm, that the bar of evidence, right, has to be high. It can't just be, it feels like it was Russia. In my opinion, that should not be sufficient. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what we want to do. We want to strive for higher quality of evidence when it comes to one government blaming another government.
Right. Well, I think when we talked before, you emphasized that crackers, which is, I guess, the proper name for the people we're talking about here, not hackers, these crackers, this is part of the game. It always is to frame up somebody else and to leave breadcrumbs that would disguise your crack as having been done by somebody else. First you stop in a server in Zimbabwe, then one in China, then one in Russia, and only then do you attack the Germans or whatever it is that you're up to, right?
I personally don't use the word cracker. I just can't. Maybe I'm too old. I just can't bring myself to use the word.
Well, I was corrected recently that. So you're saying that everybody's a hacker now. All right.
It may be, yeah. It may be right. I just can't bring myself to use the word.
You know what? An offended hacker emailed me, but I get it.
Yeah. Hey, that's okay. You know what? There's worse things to be offended by than being called a hacker versus a cracker. So, fine view. Yeah, you definitely don't want to leave breadcrumbs that point back to you. That's just stupid. It's always been. It's like expecting the NSA. The NSA's TAO division that does their offensive work, that they would be working from their keyboard in Fort Meade, or from their keyboard in Hawaii, or wherever they happen to be, whatever NSA office they happen to be working out of, that they're just going to use their desktop laptop and the server inside NSA headquarters to launch their attacks. Well, who does that? Who is that stupid? We certainly aren't, but yet we seem to think that the Russians are. Mm-hmm. So. And then on the other hand, they're extremely sophisticated. So you can't have it both ways, And there are hackers that are so stupid that they will launch attacks from their mom's home in their little room in the basement on their mattress and their 400-pound self, like Donald Trump has suggested. There are people that are that dumb, absolutely, But if you're talking about a foreign government's intelligence service or the GRU, which frankly is, not a bunch of dummies at all. In fact, they're Spetsnaz is their special operations team that come out of GRU. I would say anybody in the Spec Ops world knows that you don't f around with Spetsnaz soldiers, and yet they expect their hackers to be idiots. It's just, it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. All right, now, I'm sorry, I'm afraid I'm keeping you too long. I know you're kind of in a hurry, but let me just ask you real quick here. You've said before, I guess you said today, that it can be really hard to prove something like this. It may be impossible most of the time to prove after the fact by going back and just doing detective work to really find out where something like this occurred or who's behind this. Because as we're talking about how easy it is to frame up somebody else, just put Iron Felix's name in there and everybody screams Russia, right? But
yeah.
So on the other hand, though, I'm hearing from William Binney, who was a former, I don't know what, at NSA, but they say that he built the modern NSA infrastructure of global interception. He's the guy that the Nick Cage character is based on in the new Snowden movie. And Binney, he said, he's been retired since '02 or something like that, but he says, look, there's just no question that if the GRU did this, never mind this kind of after the fact detective work, that if they did this, the NSA would be able to have seen them do it in real time, or at least would be able to trace what had happened over the internet because they intercept it all. So never mind, CrowdStrike digging through the metadata and whatever, that the NSA, they would be able to judge with high confidence the Russians did this, the Russians passed it to WikiLeaks, etc. And if they're not saying they judge that with high confidence, it's because they have no proof that that's true, but they should. And if they don't, then that's the dog that didn't bark.
Right. I was on an interview program with Binney, and I agree. And he particularly applies that logic to WikiLeaks receiving the stolen files. That those, because the WikiLeaks website is certainly monitored. Every which way in and out of that website is monitored. And so the NSA would have known conclusively who shared those files, and they don't. They don't seem to know. So I agree with him. There are certainly blank spots in the NSA's coverage around the world. So in certain areas, they have deeper and wider penetration than in others. North Korea, for example, they don't have very good insight. They've acknowledged that, and also GRU's works around the world. So they don't only work in Russia or in official GRU offices. Their primary mission is human intelligence, so not signals intelligence. So they operate covertly, just like CIA does, around the world. So you don't know, even if the NSA were able to collect all of the communications every moment that is transmitted around the world, they'd have two problems. One is mining it and trying to find the needle in a haystack of needles. And the other is, even if they collect it, how do they know who actually sent it? That's still, who's driving the car is still a hard question, even if you know everything else. Mm-hmm. Identifying the driver behind the keyboard is still tough.
Right. All right. Before I let you go, is there any good question that I'm not smart enough to have known to ask you here? We need to
the bottom line here is nobody is saying. Keep in mind, nobody is saying, nobody can rule out that Russia didn't do it. Right? We can't rule that out. We just what we want to strive to do, like I said earlier, is don't do harm with your guesswork. Don't make claims that are going to result in harm unless you have evidence to support it, and continue to be skeptical. And Scott, thanks so much, because you've been a consistent person who has been striving for some objectivity and expressing skepticism on the information that the mainstream media continues to sort of spoon feed everybody else.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you very much, Jeff. I really appreciate your time on the show again.
All righty. Have a good one.
You too. All right, y'all. That is Jeffrey Carr. He is he is the founder of Suits and Spooks, and that's a big conference that they put on, cybersecurity conference. The next one is coming up at the end of November at the big car show, the LA Auto Show in Los Angeles. Check out his writings at medium.com, and Well, just put him in Google. He's all over the place, including a recent article in the Miami Herald, where they were also throwing cold water on this Democratic Party conspiracy theory. All right, y'all, that's it. Scott Horton Show. Check out the archives at scotthorton.org/interviews, at libertarianinstitute.org/Scott Horton Show, and follow me on Twitter at Scott Horton Show. Thanks.
I love Bitcoin, but there's just something incredibly satisfying about having real, fine silver in your pocket. That's why commodity discs are so neat. They're 1-ounce rounds of fine silver with a QR code on the back. Just grab your smartphone's QR reader, scan the coin, and you'll instantly get the silver spot price in Federal Reserve notes and Bitcoin. And if you donate $100 to the Scott Horton Show, he'll send you one. Learn more at facebook.com/commoditydiscs. commoditydiscs.com.
Hey, Al Scott here. If you've got a band, a business, a cause, or campaign, and you need stickers to help promote, check out thebumpersticker.com at thebumpersticker.com. They digitally print with solvent ink, so you get the photo quality results of digital with the strength and durability of old-style screen printing. I'm sure glad I sold thebumpersticker.com to Rick back when. He's made a hell of a great company out of it, and there are thousands of satisfied customers who agree with me, too. Let thebumpersticker.com help you get the word out. That's thebumpersticker.com at thebumpersticker.com.